Welcome to the EDUCAUSE 2020 Games and Learning Roundtable discussion. If you're new to our community group, we host webinars, the occasional book club, in-person meetings when we're not all virtual, and lively discussions on the email listserv. To join the group, simply visit bit.ly/gamesandlearningcg. You can also visit the website at bit.ly/gamesandlearningsite, where you'll find more resources, a copy of this video, and the full unedited discussion. Thank you, and enjoy the session. So welcome to our EDUCAUSE Games and Learning Roundtable. I would like to welcome our guests today, Donna Baer from Penn State Harrisburg, Kay Novak, Front Range Community College, Tricia Boucher, Texas State University, Tori Mondelli from University of Missouri, Michael Hilborn from Harvard University, Tiffany Attaway from Foreign Service Institute, and I'm Chaz Grundy from the University of Notre Dame. So we're just going to have a conversation about some of the interesting things that we've been encountering over the last year around gaming, learning, and how all of this stuff has happened in the era of COVID. So I guess let's start off with that. How have you guys been using games in the era of COVID-19?
I found that it wasn't super easy to support faculty in implementing games, in March when our institution had the emergency pivot. But what seemed much more readily accessible was advising faculty on how to make the online learning environment more playful. And so I'd love to hear from you all, if you had a similar experience and the kinds of things that you may have advised on. But, the first thing for us at Mizzou was really, getting ourselves and our colleagues feeling really comfortable with Zoom and starting to have some fun with these features. And if you stay on this call with me for any length of time, you're going to see that I'm just one of these people who just goes mad for these icons, and just, I really try to amp up the emotion, I think, in online, and tap into our humanness and all of the power we derive from affective kind of social interactions.
So one of the things that's come up a lot is the idea that especially people doing classes online and over Zoom or in this socially distanced, in a distanced way, undergraduate students, especially freshmen, new undergraduate students, graduate students in a new institution, transfer students, all of these are struggling with isolation and building those networks and friendships and connections that they otherwise would have had through a lot of the normal kinds of activities we have. Have you guys seen any examples where games and play have been useful in overcoming these challenges?
One of the things we have an outreach group that started an RPG, a Dungeons and Dragons group, and they were teaching people not just how to play the game. They've never played, you want to try it, come on in. And then they were also starting Dungeon Master kind of classes to kind of teach people, to particularly women, to be dungeon masters. And this was great. And they got tons of people signed up right before spring break last spring. But the hope is to bring that online and start bringing some of those people who signed up and who are interested and having that in an online format.
Have you guys injected any games into just your normal meetings, into projects, into anything with your colleagues?
With the group that I work with, where we have a few of us are playing Pokemon Go, so we do that and kind of compare stats. There's some people who are a little bit more into it than others, but a lot of times we're just talking about games as well. I work for an instructional design team. I work with an instructional design team, so we're often dancing back ideas and talking about games just in general.
We've injected just some simple games into some of our meetings, and even have devoted time with our colleagues to just having time to play a game in over Zoom. For example, and they're relatively simple games too. I mean, one of the things we did is we had a virtual lunch with just hanging out and playing a trivia game. Some of the folks got prepared ahead of time, had some questions, divided us up in the breakout room / teams, and got us going on a trivia game. And that turned out to be a lot of fun. You know, you don't have to have a very elaborate system of gamification or anything like that to take advantage of what we have right now.
What advice would you guys give to somebody who's just dipping their toe in the water, getting started with all of this?
I'd have to say play games. It's really important to get to know how game mechanics work, the intricacies of the game, what makes it go well, what doesn't make it go well, and then try it. You know, we did a game-based scenario in a class. It was an ethics class, and how we set that up was, here's the town, these are the parameters of the town. You have to create your character, give them an ethical stance, and then develop stats around your decisions. So if they choose this route, does their point value go up or go down? And so through that process, we definitely learned what worked and what quite didn't work, and have gone through iterations and tweaked that process. So that's one of the things that we have done.
Yeah, I would actually just echo what Donna says. You do not have to know a ton about games to throw something down and try it. And just tell the students you're trying something new on them and they're your guinea pigs, and tell you what they liked or didn't like, because they will. And it's really, it can be really fun, because then they become collaborators. And it can be a tiny, tiny intervention into a regular class where it's just a moment out of the class where you're presenting or you're doing something interactive, and then you say, okay, 3 seconds, everybody, you know, I'm going to say a word, everybody, you know, say the first thing that comes to mind. It wakes people up. It's not like everything has to be perfectly related to your to the class content. It's just, it's a way to keep people involved. And I think people get this concern that it has to be perfect or it has to be set up exactly right, and really just throwing down what you have and trying it out and not sweating the perfection piece. You'll have a lot of fun with the students rather than just for the students.
And don't be afraid to fail. I mean, willingness to fail is a hallmark of any good gamer, right? You have to be willing to die and reload and start again. So just try it. You know, if it makes you feel better, call it a beta test. You know?
Oh, we pilot things all the time. I am the queen of the pilot. Yes.
And I would reel Michael in here to talk a bit more because of his background with interactive fiction. Here's the thing with interactive fiction, you can pull it up on a screen like Zoom. You can read it or have one of your students read it, and you can play through portions of it, having your students have discussions, and you can stop it. I mean, think about it. We've done this in our face-to-face classes. It's even better now.
Yeah, and in regards to interactive fiction, it is a great way to start. There are a couple tools out there. I'll name Twine, which creates sort of choose your own adventure games for the web, and you can do it really quickly and really fast and fairly easily. And there's a huge community around the Twine. If you want to go a little bit more advanced, if you want to go more old school into text adventures or something like that, there's a programming language called Inform 7 that's out there. And again, that takes a little bit more getting involved in a little bit more programming know-how, but you can still create very simple, for low cost or really no cost text adventure games with these tools.
Well, and you can use, I mean, some of the games that are out there right now for, you know, English classes or textual analysis. Paul Darvasi uses, I think it's The Path. That's just a game that you can get off of Steam, and he does a whole English class with that, where they go through and somebody plays and everybody watches and they read and they discuss and they dissect. And, you know, there's a lot of other games you could do that with. So the ones that are more, heavily text-based, even if you're not creating them, but they're already there, you can do a lot with that, with unreliable narrator, with, point of view and perspective.
Yeah, before we move away from this topic, I'm really enjoying this thread of our conversation, and I feel like I have to, confess that I'm not sure I'm exactly where you guys are with this. Just go ahead and just do it and just try it. I grapple with this, I really do, and that's part of the reason why I got involved in, the research and writing the book. Side note: the book isn't out yet. It will be coming out soon. It should have been out by now. We're still final edits, but it is coming out. But here's the thing for me, and when I think about play and games, I think about a spectrum, right, of like light, playful activities right through to really deep, serious gaming that could be tied to an assessment and a grade and credit. So all of a sudden, like it starts to matter more. And where my thinking is when it's just that kind of light icebreaker-ish kind of like engagement boost. Sure, just go for it. You know what I mean? Be your most creative, inspired self. But as you start to move along that spectrum and, expect your students to invest hours of their time and their deepest thinking and best work, please don't wing it. Just like, with all instructional design we do, right? Like being very intentional of aligning it to your learning goals and the desired student learning outcomes. Like this is critical because they can't and shouldn't be our guinea pigs with that kind of a level of work. Yeah.
Victoria, something you said in really jumps out at me. I think it's an important point to highlight, which is starting with those objectives. What are your learning objectives? And if my objective for this game is to engage my colleagues or my students, then the kind of game I need to use, the level of robustness and is maybe different than if I have a very concrete learning objective. I guess that's the next question. What are the biggest pitfalls you would avoid? Tricia, what do you got?
I'm saying, please, please, please do not use the Jeopardy board. That is just a quiz in disguise. Students know it's a quiz in disguise. It's mean. No, don't use it.
Can we just ban it outright? But I think that's a good entree for a lot of people who are coming from a no game. I mean, I don't like it either. It kills me. But the people that bring it to me and go, look what I found, they're so excited. Mm-hmm. That's where you gently say, that's great. And now let's look at some other things you can do. Because for me, it's not just Jeopardy, but Kahoot. I really no quizzes. But yeah, that's a good starting point. Like it's the entree into a wider world of things that they can do. And we've at least got them at the threshold. So I don't love it, but I'll take it as the first step.
You're so much nicer than me because my thought is like, now can we make it fun? Which is not the nicest thing to say to someone who's so excited that they made a game. I'm sorry. I'm a terrible human being.
Sorry, this is an instructional designer going into the weeds. But I'm going to say Jeopardy, I look at it, Jeopardy's a frame game, meaning everybody knows the rules. Are there other games we could consider that your students would already know the rules? Now, the next part, I'm pulling out Keller's motivational design, okay? You can play that with Jeopardy, okay? The ARCS model. Attention, relevance, confidence, success. So the ARCS model, you can easily pull it out. Look, it's Jeopardy. It's something different. It gets their attention. Relevance, you're pulling the stuff from a quiz. It's relevant material. Confidence, it's a frame game. They know how to use it. And that satisfaction, factor, at the end, they know if they've won or not. So as a frame game, you can start with Jeopardy. Just move people along the way.
You can move them up the ladder.
I like this conversation really highlights a couple of the challenges we have. So we have folks who attend the Games and Learning the community group meetings at EDUCAUSE each year, and you're speaking their language. And then you have other folks sitting next to them. Mm-hmm. I've never done games, and I thought Jeopardy sounded like a great place to start. Mm-hmm. And you really just laid out that
it's a frame game. You can start there.
there's a starting point, but you don't have to stop there.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of options forward, right? So and Tiffany, as somebody who just ran a Kahoot during a team, like a quiz, like a team all hands meeting earlier this week, is just a goofy trivia thing I did. You know, that's an easy thing to start with. If you're starting from no games and going and trying to dip your toe in the water, there are a couple of things like this. So what's the next step if you want to say, let's move beyond Jeopardy and Kahoot and do something else? What would you recommend?
I of course, would recommend interactive fiction as a fan of the genre. Like I pointed out before, interactive fiction, you can start very basic. You can start very simple with a choose your own adventure game, have students make choices, have those choices have ramifications, have them, you know, that's how I would say a way to get started or a way to move on. It's a little bit more complex than, say, Jeopardy, and it might be a little bit more engaging too.
I'd like to add to that. You don't have to have like a gaming platform to work on that. You could do that with PowerPoint and just use the branching scenarios. And we've also seen it done with Qualtrics. And so they've made a Qualtrics form, and as you answer the question, the scenario changes. So there's a multitude of different ways to do that with software that you might already know.
A few months ago, the Harry Potter escape room that was built in Google Forms that made the rounds came out of library somewhere, and that was really spring.
That's because libraries are awesome and librarians have fun.
Tori, what would you like to suggest they check out?
I'd love to tell you one of my approaches is to start with the faculty member or graduate instructor's discipline and start to kind of unpack and look for places in the discipline where there's mystery or where there's games already there. And also think about the role of taking the learner from a learner stance to a novice and a master in that field. I think, as academics, we really feel most comfortable when we're in our own disciplinary kind of culture. And that, if you're new to games, that's fine. You're not new to your discipline, that's for sure. But I can help you, or we can look together to find, fertile ground. As a historian myself, I love to use what Joe Biz and I call the find the clue complex mechanic. So in history, as you're searching through primary sources, secondary sources, right, you're trying to put together a narrative. You're trying to put together some semblance of a retelling of past events, and that's all about hunting. That's all about fitting puzzle pieces together. And so if you are interested in games and you don't know where to start, I would say that look into your discipline and start just with a different lens of what might be possible, and then it'll click. It'll feel real natural.
Thank you guys so much for your time. This has been a great time hanging out with you guys. And I hope everybody at EDUCAUSE has a wonderful time. I'm sorry I won't be able to join you there, but I know Tori and Trisha, you guys are ready and on the line to answer questions. So fire away. You guys have a lovely evening.